Call the committee of the whole.
Recording in progress.
January 31st to order. Madam Clerk, please call a roll.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Alderman Hopeford.
Here.
Alderman Mayer.
Here.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Here.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Nelson.
Here. We have a quorum. Please rise. Join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I have to play Solomon here, Alderman Barber. I have two aldermen who would like to offer a moment of silence for Marge Shore, longtime an alderman, longtime civic activist, a committee member for the Environmental Commission, the Quarry Monitoring Commission, and several others. Now, I could get in the middle of a battle, but I've chosen to do it myself.
We could both nominate. We could both propose it.
Or offer.
Proposal.
Well, let's do this with some dignity. So I'd like to offer a moment of silence, please, on behalf of the two aldermen and the community for Marge Shore. And she passed away last week. And may she rest in peace. She's with her husband, Don, now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kristen, you want to say a word?
I really enjoyed working with Marge. She is, as Don Dorson said, a force to be reckoned with sometimes, but she was there for so much of what we did, leading things to the city. And I made a kind of a post on Facebook on her behalf and said a few things and posted our picture from 20 years ago. So you get a chance to see that. I think that says quite a bit. Thank you.
Alderman Barber?
I know Marge is a spirited crusader who had strong beliefs and concerns, and she would fight for them. She was a fighter, and she liked you. Sometimes she didn't, based on whether you agreed with her or not. But she was a fighter, and that's what I respect with her.
Thank you very much. Okay, given that sad subject, we'll move on to something more encouraging. We announced a couple of weeks ago that Franklin is now the only fire department that we know of in Milwaukee County with full-time, fully staffed paramedics. Part of that effort's been coming for years and years and years under Chief Remington's guidance. But we also have been looking, I'm going to say we, please don't take offense, you guys. We've been trying to use technology to fill in the gaps. And we were pretty close to one of the first to pick up a Lucas device. And it's an amazing device. For people who look like me, it's a lifesaver, potentially. So Alderman Mayer, former fire chief himself, has asked that we do a demonstration. I think that's a stellar idea, so here we are tonight. Chief Antoine, who is in charge of EMS for us, will lead it off. Go ahead, Shannon.
I brought Julie with us. She's from Stryker, promotes Lucas, has been a great helping hand in all of this. Through 2021, we had 53 cardiac arrests here in Franklin. Of those 53, 23, we were not able to do any effort. But for 30 of those, we were able to apply this device. Of those 30, we were able to transport 16 out of those 30 patients just this year. And 9 of those throughout our calls regain a pulse at some time throughout our working up the code. So this product is phenomenal. It not only frees up our personnel to be able to do other things like IVs, medications, look at the heart monitor, make sure that we're covering all our grounds, but it also gives us the safety aspect as well. We are performing compressions 100% same way every time with this device. You don't have somebody getting tired. You don't have somebody worrying about how deep they're doing the compressions. This device is all mechanical for you. With that said, we have the device here today for Julie to put together for us. It also saves us through transports as well. We'll have a video at the end of this where you'll be able to see it. on YouTube, action. But also while we're traveling, moving this patient from the floor to the cot, from the cot to the ambulance, from the ambulance to the hospital, this device never stops. So we're never giving the patient their care, not giving them their care.
So like I said, like Shannon said, I am Julia Stryker. This is our Lucas device. It's all enclosed in here. A quick and easy access. It's intuitive, so anyone that gets their hands on it, no matter how long it's been, they're pretty quick to turn it on and get it moving. So we've got a screen here. When we get to the scene, and I don't say we, I'm not an EMS professional, but when the EMS professionals get to the scene, they can turn on the device and deploy it. Like Assistant Chief Antoine said, this is a device that's going to give perfect and consistent compressions. That means it's going to keep the blood flow going and keep that patient more with less neurological damage once they resuscitate. 45,000 of these have been deployed globally, and the uptick is incredible. So all of Milwaukee County really has a lot of their hands on this right now, and that's just great because it does give those perfect, consistent compressions. So we do have a backboard. When we get to the scene, we lift up the patient and we stick the backboard underneath. This device can go on 95% of the population. It is on. The EMS paramedics are doing compressions when the device is deployed. So those compressions have been started right away. And then from here, we lock this compression device on. Lucas stands for the automated compression device. And so from here, we have the patient, we're doing the chest compressions. As you can see, we can do it from this angle, keep that blood going. And then we find the patient, and all we do is we'll start compressions. And from here, we do 102 compressions per minute. The depth on this is set at 2.1. If we need to pause, we can pause it and just adjust it if needed. Depth again is 2.1 inches. This can be used up on anyone that, I think Milwaukee County says anyone that's from puberty on up. So at that point, if somebody has reached puberty, you can put this on a patient. If the patient is too small, it will not do the compressions. If the patient is a little bigger and they need a little more force for those compressions, they can it can go deeper in the compressions, like 2.4 inches. The HA guidelines say between 100 and 105 compressions per minute and 2 to 2.4 depth, and this will give that consistent compression. As Assistant Chief said, this is something that keeps the paramedics safe in the back of the ambulance as well, because they can be strapped down, and at any point they need to start this Lucas device back. It will go from here. We can pause it and we can go backwards, and then from here we put their arms up, and their arms can be in the straps, and they can be safely secured into the cot and on their way to the hospital.
People might say that the compression is a little dramatic.
Aggressive.
Is that typical compression? Is that something that a paramedic would be doing? And maybe Chief Antoine want to comment about how long our paramedics are all healthy. So a healthy paramedic could continue to do that.
So the American Heart Association recommends that you switch out every 2 minutes. So in order to run a cardiac arrest, you essentially need 6 people to run that cardiac arrest. Here with this device takes away 2 of those people. So we're able to concentrate on different items throughout the call, able to make sure we're covering all avenues right away efficiently. We run a call at minimum 20 minutes, but you can run a call for up to 40 minutes. So to have 2 people keep interchanging every 2 minutes can get pretty tiring.
And that rotation is just for the CPR. That doesn't account for drug administration,
Correct.
defibrillation, hey, I said it, or any of the other medical treatments, plus dealing with the family.
Correct.
So that explains why we respond so heavily for a PNB or a heart attack.
Yep, on all our PNB, we have the ambulance responding with 2, an engine responding with 2, and then our battalion chief. So our battalion chief currently carries one of these on their apparatus, so that is technically our sixth.
But currently, we have one.
Currently, we
It's
have
in a battalion chief's car, the squad, and the battalion chief's on this side of town, and the PNB or the heart attack is at Staybridge. That's not the promise of a good outcome, is it?
So you have to, we'll start doing mechanical or compressions ourselves. We'll continue to rotate and we'll wait for it to arrive.
This can go indefinitely too, so they end up picking them up from one side of the town and have to deliver them, drive the patient somewhere farther away. This can go, you know, for 2 to 3 hours indefinitely. So transition between the patient's home, to the ambulance, to the hospital, in the ER, to the cath lab. This can go to all those different places, and it just helps that patient get a full recovery.
We've also been really pushing our CPR program for our bystanders as well. Since August, we started our initiative with CPR and Stop the Bleed. And since August, we've had 306 people certified in CPR for a total of 359 in 2021. And then Stop the Bleed, we had 217 since August with a total of 244. And in next month, tomorrow, we'll be having another 79 people certified throughout Franklin.
How does one go about signing up for CPR and or Stop the Bleed?
It's on our city website, so it's under the city education. It's also under the fire department website page. And you can also email me directly and I'll make sure you get set up classes. We've been doing civilians, we've been doing businesses. Hopefully we can get a lot more people involved.
Now, there are several of us up here who have taken both classes. And I just want to let everybody know it's not a scary experience. It's handled very well by our paramedics, Chief Antoine, and it's nothing to be frightened of. And the Stop the Bleed is not frightening either. You get the facts and you know how it's you're being trained, but it's a worthwhile class.
Our bystanders, if we can get more bystanders, for education, CPR and Stop the Bleed, it's doubles and even triples your chances of survival. So, and most of the time, you're going to be doing CPR on a level. 75% of cardiac arrests happen at homes. 12% happen in businesses.
Alderman Barber.
Not having taken the courses yet, is someone doing breathing at this point, or is the machine doing that, or is there somebody else that'll have to assist with the breathing part?
Paramedics would assist with the ventilation. This gives an opportunity to do 30 compressions, 2 ventilations, and then go, you guys do continuous compressions. If you establish an airway, you can do continuous compressions. And the Lucas device is great for helping over-ventilating. It will have a light on there and blink 10 times a minute to remind whoever's doing ventilation to make sure they breathe at that point, so they're not over-ventilating. Kind of team up with the Lucas device and look at the light.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight. And I'll just dovetail off of what the mayor just said. I did the training for the CPR certification and the Stop the Bleed last fall. And for those watching online, it is a really very valuable way to spend a half of your day. It's something that is incredibly important, I think. So, and that was the first time I saw the Lucas device and thought, wow, that's pretty awesome. We need more of that. So I'm glad we're able to get this into your hands. So thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in tonight. This is really an important thing for everybody to see, and that's why I asked you to come in and do a demonstration. So thank you. A couple of important things here to recognize now. First of all, you talked about bystander CPR, and 75% are on relatives or in the home. It is really important to get that CPR class. I ran into somebody at the store the other day, said Lieutenant Kevin Check did an outstanding job on their CPR class. So, and it's nothing to be afraid of, as the elder woman was alluding to. It's not. It's really important. And that's the first step in the important steps for survival of someone suffering from a cardiac arrest. Now, the other thing is, very few people suffer a heart attack, cardiac arrest on a flat table here or on your cot. You know, it happens in the bedroom, it happens in the basement, it happens in the garage, and those first responders that start CPR is very important. But then once that happens, CPR has to continue from wherever that location is into the ambulance, into the hospital. And that's where this comes in so important. It just continues on. It's nonstop, like you said. So if you can picture the importance of this on a real scene, someone goes down somewhere in their home or somewhere in a business, and they have to be transported to the ambulance first. And CPR can be compromised during that time, but not with this machine. So it's continuous. It continues on, and this is a real lifesaver. And there's been a few things, innovations in the fire and EMS service over the last 40 years that have really been major game changers, and I believe this is one of them. So thank you for demonstrating, and thank the council for supporting this purchase.
Good evening, and just to echo everyone else, thank you for coming here. I've seen it at least a dozen times work as a first responder, and I'm very happy that we have this opportunity to give that to our citizens. So thank you.
Anybody else? Mayor?
You mentioned that we're now probably the only fire department in Milwaukee County that has fully certified paramedics, not EMTs. EMTs are really important. They are the first responders, and we can't cut them short. But paramedic is a much more advanced, more education, more training, more involved life-saving skills. So it is really important, but it's a step up. We were always EMTs. All of our firefighters have always been EMTs, but now all of our firefighters are actually all paramedics as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I truly believe that your basics is your foundation to be a paramedic. You don't have that basic foundation and having those set skills of interviewing patients, getting your vitals and everything else. Great basic makes a good paramedic.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Julie, appreciate it.
We have one short video so you can see this whole Lucas device from start to finish. It's just a 1-minute
I
video.
didn't want to put it on because it's loud, so. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Okay, that's exciting stuff. Thank you, Council. We move on to item C, which is Keeney Architects LLC status update concerning the Department of Public Works and Fire Needs Assessment status. Okay. John Wallenkamp.
pick one. The technical term for that is phase cancellation. Your voice cancels itself out and you get nothing.
Good evening. Yeah, John Wallenkamp, 7305 West Wisconsin Avenue, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. So the presentation tonight is kind of a high-level overview of the DPW and fire study. But more importantly, it is to just give you guys the information and give me questions back, either to answer tonight or go back and get the answers. Our goal is to make sure you fully understand the complete study that we put together and the understanding of what went into that study and why we came up with the outcome, making sure that you have all your questions answered. We're going to start with the DPW site. You're all familiar with the DPW site, hopefully. Ryan Road and 80th Street, just south on that corner. I'll call it the southeast corner. The image in your upper left is an aerial view of the current site. The current site's made up of 60,000 square feet of building footprint on the site. From the main building to the salt structure, to some outbuildings, to some fuel island. As I go through the presentation, I'll highlight where the areas are being taken by fire. But the ball fields to the current south of the existing site are also part of the DPW site. And as you see the presentation, as the building grows, that's the direction it's going to go. So those ball fields will go away for additional building area, yard area, and stormwater collection area. If you haven't visited the site, we'd like to have you through the building and all the buildings on the site, just to give you a good feel what they deal with in a day-to-day for operations. A lot of the buildings have met their capacity to store the equipment. When the buildings were built, they were built for different size vehicles. As vehicles have grown, you can see they've gone into tighter quarters. And the importance to know about that is it takes employees time to move that equipment. So when we present the new plan, you'll see, yes, there's aisle spaces, there's things like that. The reason for that is our goal is on the presentation is to show you how we're going to gain efficiencies in a new building. The bottom left are just, I'll call it things that are going to have to be maintained anyways. So if nothing happens to this building, roofs are going to have to be looked at, caulking, tuck pointing, things like that are going to have to be done regardless. So part of the presentation or the proposal or study gives you what also needs to be done if nothing would happen to the building. And inside the building, you'll see it, areas have grown. So as staff has grown, employees are working out of hallways at desks, equipment stored in the hallways, just because they're, again, the lack of space. Vehicles, as I mentioned, you can see the parking in the drive aisles. Those are vehicles that are there. Again, the size has changed over the years. Now those vehicles are sticking in drive aisle areas when in 1995 when the building was constructed. Station number 2, 8,300 square feet, 2.8 square feet. They have 13 parking spaces. Really the goal here of the station is not that the station doesn't meet the needs. What we're trying to do is think outside the box with the growth coming to the west and the southwest of the city. How can we construct one station that really is going to act as 2 stations? The current footprint, as you see here in the bottom right, the blue circle, that's the dispatch area that Station 2 currently can cover. The round circle is the proposed site at DPW. And you can see the relocation in the red. Actually, the dispatching area is greatly in circumference the city in a greater circumference in a time period east, west, north, south. So here's the existing DPW, back to existing DPW. The upper left image that you're seeing, this red outlined imagery, that's where we're proposing to put fire on the current DPW site. So it pretty much would front 100% of Ryan Road. The two existing storage buildings that have met their life, which is about 10,000 square feet, would be removed. That's part of what has to be replaced into the new structure. So here's the new proposed footprint. So the blue image you're seeing within that red outlined area is the new fire station number 2. There again, dispatching onto Ryan Road. The primary function of DPW now, the primary entrances would come off 80th Street. Bottom left, you'll see that there's a public recycling center right now. If you're familiar with the yard, it's currently within the yard. You actually got to come in within vehicles. The goal is to separate all that for safety. So the bottom left there will be the drop-off site and also will be the main fueling island. So other individuals that fuel at the DPW site, the county, fire, won't have to come within the yard. They're outside the footprint of the yard, not intermingling with the larger vehicles. You can see the south part of this, as I said, is populated with stormwater retention, and that's going to really take over the current outside yard area. Yes, sir.
How far does 80th Street currently come in? It's a minor thing, but just for point of reference, how far does 80th Street currently come in?
Perfect, yeah. Right now, that's cul-de-sac.
Yes.
That's there. That's the southern edge of the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So the recycling center will come off that southern edge of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, thank you.
The current footprint, the red is the admin area and support. So everything in red is what I'm going to say is locker rooms, bathroom, lunchroom, training room. Anything that has office staff is in red. The yellow, and these colors are going to carry over to help you pull together. The yellow is all the storage areas. The orange is existing repair bay, and the green is existing vehicle parking.
Before you go on, John, these slides will have a tendency to rotate a little bit. Ryan Road is to the right.
Thank you, Mayor.
80, whatever it is on the top.
Yeah, so as that building's getting longer, we did rotate, so as Mayor said, the Ryan Road's to your right. So the new footprint here is populating the new admin area. So the new admin area in red, there again, is covering everything that employees support, lunchroom, break room, training room, all that's in the red area. 100% moving out of the existing admin area. Still on the right.
On the right.
All these slides now, Ryan Road's on the right. The new shop area is in yellow. So the current far right section of yellow there, that's the current footprint of where admin and support shops are there. So that's going to be repurposed into shops. And then the additional yellow will be new constructed shops. The orange, which currently is in the far right of this repair bay, will be populated in the bottom left. And the important piece there is circulation through the repair bay is very cumbersome for staff. Vehicles, as they got bigger, it's harder to move in and out. It's a left turn. This is direct in, direct out, or direct drive-through right into the vehicle parking, just to help save time. The green is the light green, that's existing vehicle parking. And here would be your new vehicle parking. The bottom left are your wash bays. So right now, proposed as a master plan is manual wash bay, auto wash, and an exterior wash. So it's everything, the goal is to have facility and areas for cleaning vehicles so they can be properly maintained, parked, stored, and gain longevity. This just illustration quickly just shows you that footprint. In the dark purple are the areas on the site that we'd be losing and kind of take up the footprint. So this big box here is the storage building on the site. So I'm just kind of doing an overlay so you can see that how space is popular. This admin's over the existing admin. Fire. So the way to look at this station is it's going to be designed as 2 stations. The nice thing with that, it's not 2 of everything. We don't have 2 kitchens. We don't have 2 support. Really, the biggest piece that we have is 2 for sleeping. But other than that, it can dual on all the kitchen areas, the day room, all that can be in kind of acting as one station. So the upper right teal is what I'll call sleeping area 1. The bottom darker purple is sleeping area 2. And then the purple is all the support that goes with that. The orange would be the additional circulation and storage, different EMS storage. This will also act as almost a central storage for the other stations. So the goal here is that'll help free up space at Station 1. That'll come back to this station as a central storage for like EMS product and things like that. In an apparatus bay. You can see this right there again, Ryan Road is to our right. To the left is south, and they can dispatch apparatus in either direction and get back to Ryan Road. The upper level, admin support, so training, things like that. So everything that's at station number 1 for admin will be coming to this station. There again, freeing up space at station 1 for any future needs that that station would have. The red would be admin support, so all the offices for chief, assistant chief, and personnel down. The lighter red area is an area that we're looking at for future growth. So it's a 1-story section, but it could be a 2-story. So in the future, if we ever needed additional growth area, this is where it would be. And there again, this is just an overlay of all the furniture and equipment. Going through the costs, the big thing I want to make sure I point out is I'm going to go through building costs. So the first slide here is what I relate to building costs. So a lot of times when people hear when buildings are built, they're really only hearing building costs. So I wanted to focus on this slide just to get everyone's mind thinking. So that the building cost for DPW is made up of all those components I went through. The office, the vehicle parking, the repair bay, the wash bays. And you can see that populates a dollar figure, what I'll say is between $11.5 and $13.4 million for the building. Then we have all the equipment and different fixtures and furnishings that go inside of it, which we call special items. Special items, there again, still really aren't building related, but to me, they're overall project costs that when we're putting this together, everybody needs to know. So from the fuel island, the salt conveyor, the replacement of the salt structure. This is the salt structure that's on site that's more of a barn. It's not the dome one that was recently built. We're showing in the study there's a lot of rehab that needs to be redone to that barn. It might be better off knocking it down. So that's why you have these numbers in there for that salt structure. Bin storage, miscellaneous furnishings, which is all your chairs, desks, things like that that would be in the admin section to function out of the building. And then at the auto wash. All these items are important because they can be alternate bid items to help us manage where we want to be for the project and what dollar amount we want to spend on the project. And then you'll have what I call more professional fees related to the project. There again, overall project costs, but we wanted to spell them all out between A&E fees, construction management fees, state plan reviews, new gas, electric, everything that goes into it, plus a contingency, down to land costs, which we have nothing here, geotechnical and builder's risk. So then that gets us to a grand total for DPW, anywhere from that $15 to $18 million for a total project cost. That's just a complete sheet. Fire, same way, broken out by all divisions, giving you the cost anywhere between 5.5 million and 6 million. We go through all the furnishings and fixtures that would go into the structure, which adds another $350,000. And then there again, your professional fees that relate to that. So you get anywhere from 6.7 million to 7.5 million. And then if we put them all in the mix and give us a grand total, we're at that 21.8 million to the 25 million, all 100% in. That's not what we're trying to sell tonight, I guess. It's just to give you what the whole thing would be. Our goal is to look at this and see exactly what needs to go in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as alternates to present the best project long-term for the city. All this, in our mind, comes back with paybacks. There's one-time paybacks and annual paybacks that happen every year. The building efficiency is a big one. Our thing is when we have tracked this for the last 30 years, when you put in the proper washing systems, when you put in the proper parking areas, vehicles extend their life minimum on a life period of 1 year. Well, that's a large number when you look at that. That's, based on your assets, 1 year of extended life period is a savings to the city. Underutilized vehicles, how do we look at that? Well, we're looking at vehicles, to be honest with you, all the vehicles we looked at with city have a really good utilization, but we're looking at this point as the resale. So now we've washed that vehicle well, we maintained it well, it actually sells at a higher price when you go to sell it, so there's some value there. FTE savings, all those are employee time savings. These are things that they don't pay you money, but what it does is it saves you money from potentially hiring another part-time employee or outsourcing something that you can now do in-house because you've saved time by being more efficient. Utility savings, it's amazing this building, based on the square foot increase, we're actually going to be balancing out the utility bill pretty close. Sale of the station number 2, if that's something we want to look at, that has a one-time price tag, say $500,000, but plus it goes back on the tax roll and you start gaining taxes every year on that site. And then the capital improvement savings, if the remodel is done, the addition is done, you're saving that potential $500,000 that you would need to put into that building today because it's going to be part of the remodel area. So when we present these numbers to you of a total project, that's getting a new roof, that's getting a new electrical lighting, all that's new even in the existing. So you can see just running these charts, it's 1.3 million to almost $500,000. And we've gone back and tracked a lot of these efficiencies over the years with other clients, and they tell us we're being light on it. But our goal is to not overdo it, but to make sure we truly list these numbers that you can truly get. Yes, sir.
Including new roofs that are going to be necessary, new remodeling that would have to be done anyway, no matter what.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Isn't the salt storage unit relatively new?
Correct.
You're saying that's going to be a complete redo?
It's the barn that's east of it. There's an old, I'll
this-
call it a barn structure.
Oh.
The newer one is
It's fine.
perfect. Yep. And then it's the one east of that would be replaced.
That's where I get my salt.
Yep, yep. So these are just some quick slides to show you efficiencies, what that means when you go into a new building that gains efficiency. So the bottom left, you can see every plow, every vehicle has a spot. It's not blocking an aisle. I don't need to, spend 10 minutes moving vehicles to get another vehicle out. The imagery to the right, you can see they truly fit. So employees, when they need to do an inspection before they leave, they can actually do it in the stall. They don't need to pull the vehicle out, go in the drive aisle, get out, walk around. So it's all these little pieces that add up to efficiency and safety. Storage areas. Our goal is not to just create storage areas everywhere to put things. You can see we have found if you place these just in aisle areas and things that under stairwells, they're easily seen. A truck can pull up and dispatch, grab a ladder. So it's all those efficiency things that we like to look at to make sure that it's not just back in it, hidden in a storeroom where we can't find it. Lunchroom, yep. Just some quick stats, and Glenn shared these at the last presentation, but you can just see since 1985 to 2021, now 2022, kind of where you guys have been. The growth is there, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I wanted to give you a snapshot of just some other facilities that we've been involved with that have gone through similar sizing. You can see most are kind of an average of doubling, their footprints. You're at 1.07. So actually, you've done very well to be efficient with the building. I'm sorry, that's just DPW. Yep. It's a quick little video. I'm going to talk as it's going. This by no means is the final. This just, we want. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Yep, I'm going to try to get back to it. Sorry, man. Nope, it didn't pause. Can you just video and play? I'm going to do it with the mic. It's a lot easier. So where the video is going to start is at the corner of, this is 80th Street and Ryan Road's to the left. So currently, the main DPW entrance is right here. Okay? So as you can see, this facade here is the existing DPW structure, and from right at this point here, transitioning south, is the new proposed footprint. The new building, existing building, R values will be updated, so the thermal envelopes would all meet what's needed to meet for today's energy efficiency. So that would be employee parking area and public parking area. Here are the exterior wash bays, so you can see they're drive-through wash bays, so other users can use them in the city too. City users. So here's that current dome that you recently constructed. This is the existing barn that we're proposing to bring down. You are looking west, correct? So everything you're seeing here is, I'm going to call it city access only with city vehicles. So the garage doors on your left are heading to repair bay, and the ones on the right would be going into vehicle parking and trailer parking. Now we're flying back over the top of Ryan Road. So this is the Station 2. This is the west-facing Station 2, which would be all the public, any public coming here, employees coming here would come on this side of the building. Correct. Yep. That current parking lot that's there now would be used by fire, plus overflow parking for any training, so we don't have to overflow parking. It'd be part of that parking lot. This view is going to be looking north towards Ryan Road. North. North. You're looking south, I'm sorry, Mayor. Yeah. Now you're looking north. And that's that future expansion area that we talked about. On top of this section here.
I have a question. I haven't really seen much of the traffic flow for fueling and fire traffic pattern. And you've got a lot of different uses coming in and out. I just want to make sure we're not creating conflicts. So maybe that's coming up yet.
Yeah, we'll get back to the site plan. So we have studied that and looked at that. Glenn has also given some plans at DOT because they're going to be reconstructing some things on Ryan Road. So we want to make sure that we can get in their potential designs, because then it's, and Glenn, jump in if I'm correct, it can be built into their construction project and not a total add cost to us when it happens.
So is there going to be conflicts with DPW and fire engines and that fueling at the same area, or that's what I didn't see, wasn't clear?
Yeah, once I get to the site plan, you'll see we actually have 2 fueling areas proposed. One would use the existing tank, and fire can just go up in that northern, by their apparatus stores, fuel in and go park. So right now, this is the exit off of Ryan Road for fire. Their entrance is here, which is outside the gate of DPW. So their main entrance is going to be here, and then this is the apparatus bay, either going south and out or up. All DPW vehicles are coming down here and going into the yard and behind this fence line and exiting here. So they'll be exiting 80th Street now.
And the fire refill area is?
So we have a
Okay.
fueling area here, fueling
Right.
1, which potentially would reuse some of the existing tanks. And then this is a secondary fueling, or primary fueling for DPW.
And as far as the sleeping area, the current people that work there, have they give input onto in the sleeping areas and how they actually feel this will work, so?
Spaces, our current stations, it's open between bunk spaces, and this will give them more private areas for, other genders and snoring.
So the task force that's put together, do you actually have people that are doing this in a daily part of this, putting this together, giving input?
We've had our command staff and we've had input from other members. It's not something we put together a big committee to design a camel, so to speak. We wanted to keep this somewhat limited as far as input, just because everybody throws out there every possible thing. And that's how we've tried to keep it reasonable and keep it's not extravagant, but it's also going to be designed to meet 40, 50 years of needs into the future. So we didn't want to get extravagant and crazy with it, which tends to happen when the larger the group that's providing input. So
I can understand that, but I can look at this from my kitchen. I don't want somebody else designing my kitchen because I'm going to be the one using my kitchen. And so I kind of think it's sort of important at least that they have at least some middle, if you filter all their feedback in, and then you can throw out duplicates and maybe somebody has a great idea and, just so you make sure you're covering their.
So John did a good job. He came down and met with our staff at least a couple occasions, and we gathered input from various groups. Yeah, I'll echo what Adam said. I mean, our guys had a lot of great ideas, but we've really worked hard to try to get the budget down, something that we think that we can afford.
I was talking more, not the DPW guys, I was talking more about the fire.
And
both, yes.
what we did also is toured multiple fire stations and talked to the people that worked in those stations, and they really had stuff that they thought they would like and ended up, it was a bad decision, we wouldn't do this again. We've tried to incorporate a lot of that type of decision-making, see what's happening other places, what people like and what they don't like.
Yeah, and the other thing you typically find, and I was just control, so at this program, and this level, you keep it at that high level of input, but as you go to the next step into certain designing, where do we want a USB outlet, where do we want this, how do we want the radius, then you do bring in different, I'll say, individuals in specific areas. Definitely, you would look at doing that.
As far as, are you suggesting, it sounds like selling the current station
It's
too?
one possibility. It's space that maybe could be used by other city departments if we wanted to keep it. It has value if we would like to sell it, that will come back.
I don't suppose you have any idea, because I think we spent over 1.5 million on it, right?
Yeah, probably in that neighborhood.
And
I just, for budgeting reason, I put the 500, I just put the number on there to
I-
give us in the ballpark
I
somewhere.
talked to a local realtor, and low side it was 500, and on the high side, I believe he said 680. So we used 500. for
yeah,
estimates.
to me, you know, you spend 1.5 million on it and you get 680 for it. I just wonder if the gain in area justifies the cost of losing that building. So
The problem with that building is location. It was built understandably back in the day.
Hold on one second. John, can you go back to the slide that shows drive time?
Which one, I'm sorry, Mayor?
Well, it's probably the sixth page.
Drive time.
Drive time, oh.
Because this is, key. I mean, people, yeah, that one. Because people, the other one.
So
Because it's key to what's going on here. And
It
people
was-
got to understand what the reason is that we're talking about this.
it was built 20 years ago as the business park was expanding, I believe using some impact fees from that. Really with the thinking that, hey, we need to cover this business park as it expands. 20 years of data tells us that that's not where our calls are coming from. That's not what's generating our calls for service. It's really residential that drives our call volume, both for fire and EMS, especially for EMS. People call 911 9 times out of 10 from their home. It covers, the current station covers the business park very well, but it doesn't cover much else. It makes it very hard to, there's almost no residential development in that response area. The dark green is a 4-minute response time. That kind of medium green is a 5-minute response, and the lighter green is 6-minute response. That's without lights and siren and without traffic preemption and all of that. If you go to the next slide, now look at all that residential area we've picked up. We can assign that area to be covered by Station 2 now and cover a lot more residential area, which will lighten the load on the other busier stations, Station 1 in particular. If we assign that whole southern part of Station 1's response area, it's going to balance out call volume between the stations and give Station 1 a little bit more breathing room as far as them being able to, that's the station where we're really getting hit with call volume because they handle most of our mutual aid calls. And also it's very dense around Station 1.
I guess I'm looking at the map thinking, I understand the DPW needs for the building. I understand, well, maybe you'll get more coverage. But what I'm also seeing is all the development that is coming that is not on there and how much further west and south that is. And I'm thinking this may be good for temporary, but I'm going to guess, and not too long from now, we're going to be building another one
Well,
over
this is-
there.
So originally, I think the plan back in the day was that a 4th station would be built and staffed when that southwestern corner built out. And quite honestly, if we weren't talking about the DPW project at this point, that would probably still be the plan. But when this opportunity came up and we started discussing it and really put together these time studies, it's really about the street access. It's about being close to Ryan Road and being close to 76th Street. We can travel any direction and make up quite a bit of time.
How far would you project that we might need another station further west or southwest once we do this one? You think this is going to hold us 20 years
Yeah.
and be a good enough response time as well?
Yeah, by moving it west, we're not actually losing a lot of time going east because we're on more of a major thoroughfare. That driveway from Station 2 where it's existing on 60th Street, it's like 3/5 of a mile to get just to a street where we can go east or west. Being right there in that central on those crossroads lets us really cover the entire southern part of the city. And we know most of the development that's probably coming into the southeast is going to be commercial, industrial. and most of what's going to be west is going to be residential. And like I said, residential is where we really,
Yeah, I know, that was mine. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Barber, and then Hanneman.
Am I good? Wouldn't it be cheaper or more practical to do the future build-out now as you do the initial, rather than holding that off and waiting at future costs for a future date? And then you'd still have the room to expand, given the fact that if that area is their growth area, and you might be looking for a station out further, wouldn't it be better and more feasible to do it right now, as far as building the future build-out area into this plan?
We would look at those as alternates. Our goal is that you know it's there, and we didn't want to just keep adding stuff on that's not needed today. And, you know, especially
so
when it comes to.
that second floor is going to be pretty much 100% administrative space. If we add future firefighters, paramedics, that's why that ground floor is designed with basically 8 beds as opposed to 4, which would be our norm at our other stations.
Wouldn't it be more cost-effective to do it in the initial build rather than down the road of future dollars?
It probably would be, but we don't know at what point in the future we would even need to expand into that space. Primarily it's built to house multiple companies, and then that upstairs space is admin space. It's a backup emergency operations center for the city, and there's other ways we can use that space. That could fit us for 40 years into the future. So if we don't need to build it out now, there's not really a driving need for that right now, and we don't know when that point is going to be.
Thank you.
And it's also space we can use for training and things like that. The hose tower opens out onto that, so it'd be a deck we could throw ladders up, we can rappel off and do things like that.
Thank you. Am I good? Yeah. Well, I think each of the alders previously alluded to the questions that I had, is that does this plan serve the city at least for the next 20 years or the foreseeable generations as we get close to what we would call full build out in the southwest corner of the city? And not only for fire, but also for Department of Public Works.
Just from the fire side, this doesn't just help us handle our future build out in the southwest. It will let us better handle our current call volume in all areas of the city, just because it's much better access. That 60th Street location made sense at the time, but I don't know that it makes
And current
sense anymore.
construction on 60th Street isn't helping you there either,
No,
at all.
no.
Another point that I wanted to make is I saw a note on one of the slides saying that the buildings would be ready to be made into solar. I would certainly advocate putting solar on right at the get-go. And I think Environmental Commission is starting to go that way with some of the things they're looking at doing. And I think as in terms of being leaders in the city, that is going to be considerations for the future. And so I'd look to do that right away.
I likely will not be sitting up here when this all comes to fruition, so I want to get a couple of points in while I can. First of all, the current DPW facility is the David R. Mayer facility. Sometimes when you do major expansions and renovations in buildings, they sometimes lose their name. I want to make sure that, I want to go on record as saying that that name needs to stay on that building.
We were making it to Daniel A. Mayer.
I don't know where the A would come.
Or
Well,
what?
I bet I know what you're thinking there, yeah. Yeah, no, it's not A. Well, that's pretty clever, pretty quickly. All right, now I lost my train of thought. The front of the fire station facing Ryan Road looks pretty plain. The rest of it looks really good, and the west facing face looks good, but that face on Ryan Road, I'd like to see that dressed up a bit.
And maybe John can answer this. I don't know that we were necessarily looking for design features, but we were looking to create the space that we know that we need. So
I get that, and it does look very functional. I get that completely. But, you know, when we're spending this kind of money, I think it should look good too. Fire prevention activities, Survive Alive House, what's your plan for that kind of stuff? Is that going to stay at Station 1? Do you have a place to house the Survive Alive House? What's your plan for that? And tours and things?
We would do most of that at the news station. There's a lot of classroom space there. We've really been doubling down on teaching CPR and other
Right.
community classes. We really want to keep that momentum going. And that's part of, I mean, you've seen Station 1, people are walking through the living area to get to the back room for a CPR class, and it's just not very functional. Most of that stuff we would probably do at this station.
Okay. As long as,
And it's going to free up areas at the other stations. Like, if we need to add another med unit, it would probably be at Station 1 first. So we'll be getting some of that out of the way to allow for that. That's probably where we'll need our next addition as far as staffing will be Station 1.
okay. And we're very fortunate in Franklin to have our first fire engine from 1945 or whatever. I think it would be great to put a portion of this, maybe even facing that Ryan Road where it looks kind of plain, maybe some lighting in there, a window or something,
Yeah,
some sort of a
definitely.
small museum type of a situation there. Because that really is way too important. It's another one of those things that we can't just let go by the wayside. We need to plan for
We're
it.
so limited with space right now. It's
I get it.
stuck back
Get
in a
it.
garage at Station 3 and stuff gets
I get it.
piled up.
And I'm not suggesting we throw more in here than we need, but this is the time to think about the future and think about that. And also, I really want to see committee activity when you guys get closer to doing this, get the troops in, because the guys that live in this fire station 24 hours a day look at things much differently. And yeah, they want things, but they need to have a sense of ownership as well. And so they need to be part of the process. And I really want to see them, a committee of some sort, involved with the planning. And there are things that the people that are there every day think about that administrative levels don't think about necessarily, especially when you're starting on the ground floor of building something. So they need to be involved in the process. That is all that I have. Thank you.
A couple of things that we need to talk about at some point. One is disposition of some of the facilities in Station 1. It's going to need a remodel on top of the new windows and the new doors. So we got to worry about that. Disposition of Station 3.
I didn't know.
You know, Station 3 was built after Station 2 was built before, Station 3 was built before Station 2. Amazing how we do things. But the disposition of that, I keep hearing people say, another city department. Really? That comes with a big cost. So we need to worry about that. Dpw transition, I'm concerned about the timing on this. Glenn knows this, and I think Kevin knows it too. I'm a strong proponent of doing the fire first. Because if you think of the timing of it, between the new subdivisions and construction of this station, the timing's appropriate and important. So that's my 2 cents. I remind everybody we're talking $25 million.
And another 10 in interest costs. So you're looking at about, the 26 goes to 35.6.
Okay. Alderman Hofer.
Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate all the information. You did mention several times, I believe, about phasing. Can you speak a little bit or explain your thoughts on the timeline of the two projects?
Yeah, really the phasing's all how it has to do with budget. There again, a project like this would probably naturally go over 3 fiscal years minimum. So when I talk about phasing, it's not just construction phasing, it's also when that would happen. But there again, the nice thing with this is, depending if fire goes first, DPW, the site needs to be addressed for stormwater. So one of the major pieces that the city has to start looking at is stormwater. So potentially that could be phase one, just getting the site ready for whatever you generate on the site. And then there again, whether fire is constructed, if fire is constructed, that puts DPW in a tough situation because they've lost major functions on that side of the site. So, you know, you got to start putting an addition on DPW in some phase. But our goal would help look at the dollars and cents we want to spend and how we have to phase that. And there again, how is that phased then construction-wise that we can operate out of the facility?
So my concerns would be our ability to borrow and borrowing that might impact the city's bond rating. So those are things that I'm looking at. If it ends up being in phases due to cost and/or financing, at what point do we lose efficiencies from having one large project?
Yeah, you would lose them right away. So what we would recommend is you look at it as a whole and you try to design it and put it out in a bid packages and see what that whole cost. And then you could step back and there would be those alternates with it. So you would see, okay, if I put this off and do it 4 years down the road, is that 2 million going to cost me 2.8 million or 2.1 million? So our goal is to help show you that. So when you push it down the road, what that's going to cost.
And then I'm understanding that both DPW and fire would have a list of, I mean, this is what we want. And depending on finance availability, they have a list of things that are must-haves and would work down to that point, correct?
Correct. You would have to put, you know, weights on all those pieces to see exactly how you want to put them into the play.
Thank you.
You notice how he kept looking at me? Because I've already done some of that. Alderman Willem.
Yes, a lot of figures thrown around here, and I keep flipping my pages back and forth. If next time maybe you could put them so the same direction, if I don't have to keep doing this. Could you just run down the figures, full total DPW and full total fire station cost anticipated, so I know which one's which on the breakout?
Yep. So, this is this sheet here that says DPW number has everything in it. So starting from the top is just building costs to specialty items to project cost to total project cost. So if you're looking at a sheet that has, it would be, you're looking at the PowerPoint sheets, I could help you with that.
All you need to really do is throw the figures out there. I don't really have
Yeah, so-
the amount of sheet, I just want to hear them on the record.
Yep, 15.5 million to 18 million for DPW, all in total project.
Okay.
And fire all in 6.7 to 7.5.
Thank you.
That's 7.9, 8.7.
That's if you wait 4 years.
Okay.
So that's a 4-year inflation. If you wait until 2025, you can see it already goes up just, and I just want to be careful, 3.9 was inflation 3 years ago. We're 12 to 13 right now. So 3.9 is just an average that it bounced. So just those 4 years you can see is $1.2 million.
So you said basically high-end 18 and 8, which is the 26, and then Peggy threw in some, and then she said something like a 36, so.
Financing charges. Right, Peggy? That's what you were.
Correct. Yeah, about 10 million in finance.
Okay.
And on top of that, you got to consider the impact on our routine borrowing for our capital costs. There's going to be a couple of years with no new squad cars and no new dump trucks and no new SCBAs or something, I don't know. Because it all comes at a cost. Microphone.
That with today's interest rates, or doing some long-term projections on what we think interest rates might be 3 years down the road.
So today we're around 2. I was using 3% on that, so probably maybe a year to 2 years in municipal finance world.
Okay.
And I think maybe just one question is, John, even if we bid it out as a package, could we bid it out over time? So we're securing our prices now, but still spending the funds over time. I think that would be a critical difference compared to, some of this inflation stuff. Of course, the contractors are going to build that in, but not necessarily as much as if we would do it separately or hold off on some of those alternates.
Yeah, when you bid it, you would have to accept those alternates, but also knowing that, in the construction phasing, that's not going to happen until year 3 of the budget year. But you couldn't bid it and not secure the contract because they can't lock in their prices with their suppliers unless they have a contract. So you'd bid, it just would happen in year 3. But you'd be under contract right away, knowing that the fuel island salt structure is not going to happen until, year 3 or the wash bay or something. We'd work those pieces with you to determine what falls within what budget year. But if you don't award the contracts, essentially all we've done is given us a milestone of what the dollar amount is and then apply to inflation to it.
But then Peggy, if I'm correct, you're suggesting borrowing at one bulk time for the full amount rather than over the course of 3 years?
Well,
Or is
it
that
gets a little
something that the
tricky.
finance committee would
It's a
kind of
little,
need to?
yeah, and it gets a little tricky with councils too, right? Finding future councils is a whole nother question in that
True.
we need to talk about when we talk about financial planning. I've had that happen in other locations, and things sometimes change. But as John said, if you commit to a certain thing, you're committing to that borrowing along with it. So sometimes it's risky not to go ahead with some of that borrowing earlier.
Okay, thanks.
And just to beat a dead horse, it's important to look at the costs in relationship to the rest of what's going on in the city. It's one big expense out of one little pot of money. So as we move forward on this, so Glenn, what's your ask? Adam?
So if we're going to do this year, we have a lot of things we need to get started on. One thing, we need to get John going on a full-blown design so we can start looking at some details and get this thing to bid out later. Some of our assumptions are the fact that we would bid this out this year. We looked at what if you bid step 1 now and step 2 next year and step 3 the year after. You eat a lot of money by doing that. There's a lot of things I need to work on. Traffic issue. DOT is working on a road project on Ryan Road. I need to, as soon as I can, start getting real plans in front of DOT. We need to get our transportation specialists to do the analysis and go to DOT and ask for what we can. They are right now proposing to take our nice, big, probably oversized driveway and shrink it down to one small driveway. With what we're proposing here, we need to, I'm going to try to petition to get 2 driveways on Ryan Road, one for, because we don't want to have people coming in and out of the fire station at the same exit that they're leaving. But right now, he assumes that we can't, we can't have that. But I'd like to make that request, and we need a traffic engineer on board to do that. Storm sewer, as John mentioned, we need to start moving our materials. It's going to take more than 2 men in a truck to go in there overnight and move what we have in our yard further south. And we can't even start moving that till we get some detention ponds to protect the sediment control, so forth. So I'd like for his contract to include right away a design where we can start getting those ponds designed. And as our guys, if we can find time this summer, we can actually construct those, but we need to get started on that ASAP. Sanitary sewer, if you didn't know, our DPW side is on a pump tank. It goes to a tank, and we spend $120 to sometimes $300 a week, depending on what we're doing, to get that pumped out. We've looked at sanitary sewer with the school buying the property next door. It's really messed up our overall projections for the Ryan Creek Interceptor, how to get flows to it. Because if that's no longer a subdivision, it's something else by the school, then we had to relook at it. So I had Foth look at that. We've got a scenario laid out. I've asked MMSD to start looking at that. Long story short, we split up into 3 projects, but this project to serve the fire station DPW is about 1.5 million. I need to get started on that right away also. So the sanitary, the storm, the traffic, and then his design. If council is agreeable that this is something that we're going to move forward with, again, we need to go through the effort so we can come up with some real numbers, some real estimates this summer. Then I need to get started on these preliminary things, and I would approach probably the next meeting and the meeting after with some design contracts.
Alderman Hanneman?
Do we also know, will the Great Water Alliance be complete with their project by then, by the time we would start this?
We can all pray.
Awesome. So, and if I might direct this question to the city administrator, Ms. Stino, and I don't have the draft capital improvement project with me, and I'll maybe go home and take a look at that, but I'm kind of wondering how this presentation fits in with the capital improvement project. Are we in the ballpark? Are we?
The estimates we used in the plan were not high enough.
Okay.
But I think what the mayor said is very key here. We had about $147 million worth of requests this year. We have a lot left, probably 130 million left. So I think the phasing and working everything together and knowing that there's going to be some hard choices as far as every single department citywide, every single building citywide, on when this can be done and that can be done, because the financial planning is going to be a key piece of this. And that's going to take some time. That's not going to be done in a meeting.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing to plan out.
I have 2 questions. Does this kind of public expenditure of money require any like referendum or any input like that? Okay. And then the other question
No, the answer is no.
The other question I have is, Glenn, you said we need a traffic engineer on board. I think before we say, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to hire this, I think we better find out that DOT is going to let us have the accesses we need before we get too far, because what if they deny it? And then we're already into design mode and going full speed ahead.
So we have shown some plans that they denied it. But having said that, we would prefer that we have 2 entrances. So we're going to try to petition for 2 entrances.
Well, shouldn't that be like pronto first before we?
That's why next meeting, I'd like to approach you with some design contracts.
Okay. I'm not sure what steps or how you're going to do this in the process, but it seems to me like we need an answer before we commit the city and this whole council to that part.
So Taddy would be the consultant I would propose, but they will work hand in hand with John in trying to come up with plans and projections and so forth.
You can't just sit down with the DOT before you spend all that money on a lot of that.
We have had at least 2 conversations with DOT about this project, and they've kind of laid out what they would need to see from us for them to even consider this. So possibly, I believe we have the best traffic engineering firm that can pitch it, and if they can't do it, then nobody can.
Okay, I think that's important for the council to have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Alderman Mayor?
One last point off of something that Alderwoman Hanneman said. Solar, if we don't put some kind of solar on the roofs of these buildings now, we'll never get into solar. So I would like to see some solar programs considered, and I would like to see the Environmental Commission involved with that as well at some point for that discussion.
So Chief Remington mentioned that we visited a lot of fire stations, a lot of DPW facilities as we were trying to select teams to work on this. Interesting comment from West Dallas. They did a lot of project, or really nice fire station. They did everything. They did the green roof. They did everything they could possibly think of, including solar. Their comment to us was they're getting rid of everything except for solar, and they're adding solar to other buildings. So that was the only one they really found effective.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. So let's move forward in that direction.
So Kevin Schlueter, our Superintendent, Department of Public Works, is here this evening. He joined us. And he's been sitting back there patiently. And I've been told that you get lonely if you don't get asked a question. So here you go, Kevin. So given this new building and the new ability to do more efficient washing and equipment maintenance, how many more years do you anticipate you may get out of a piece of equipment? A quarter of the life? Peggy's writing this down, you know. And I heard it. Thank you, Kevin.
He also said you have to start off with new ones.
I got news for you. You got a lot of new. There's a lot of shiny chrome in that building. Again, I will again offer, it's really important that the common council members and boards and commission members who will have some input on this go visit these facilities. Spend some time there and talk to the firefighters and talk to the DPW guys about their issues and what they're looking for, because that will give you the knowledge to make an intelligent and effective decision and be able to make those hard decisions when we're faced with John's wish list.
Can I ask one question?
Ms. Stino.
Glenn, all those things you talked about, stormwater, sanitary, traffic, are those built in here? Those costs?
So the traffic, that's a study by Taddy. That's, I don't know, 10 grand more or less. I haven't talked to Scope, but
Stormwater design and install, like the ponds, that's all in here. The one item that's not in here they mentioned is the extension of the sanitary sewer
sanitary.
to the building.
and we think that's going to be roughly 1.5, and on his chart, it says other funds, so that's not in here. And keep in mind that that would get paid through sanitary sewer funds. Sewer impact fees eventually would repay that.
Well, it's 40 now. We haven't gotten to the list and the hacking and slashing. So, anybody else? All right, thank you, John, appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn? Nelson and Barbara, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.